Alright, it is time to do another what if video. Today's what if is what would happen if Messina was in part 3, Stardust Crusaders. This technically can be seen as what if Messina didn't die, even though we don't know his canon fate, we don't know if he's dead, we don't know if he's alive. Araki never, I guess, gave us the conclusion to Messina's arc, which kind of confusing, but I mean, I guess so. So, enjoy my take on what would happen if Hamo Nappa actually was in part 3. Yeah, Hamo Nappa. He looks like Nappa. Look at the stash. I mean, it's a clear comparison there. Both obviously got that glorious kind of Hulk Hogan mustache going on there. But anyway, we'll actually start the video because I don't want to be wasting all your guys' time here because you probably just want to see a quick video and then I guess just me call it a day or just a long video, I guess. Whatever is going to happen here. I don't know if it'll be a long or a short one, but regardless, here is what would happen if Messina was a part of the Stardust Crusaders. Now, I guess we gotta talk about like how the part begins, like part 3, because it's like the only part that really matters here. So I guess when it comes to Messina, the first question we ask is how he is on the adventure. Well, this is kind of hard to kind of discuss, but I think there are a few possible ways for Messina to actually be a part of the Stardust Crusaders journey. I mean, I feel like I have 6 scenarios. Scenario 1 is Messina is there in the beginning with Joseph and Avdol, which is, I guess, one route you can go with to keep all the Crusaders together. Another scenario, which is pretty interesting, is maybe instead of assuming Messina has a very powerful stand, instead of it being Avdol, Joseph just takes Messina and it's just those two alone. So in this timeline, this would basically be replacing Avdol for Messina. In this case, this would probably mean Messina is probably a very busted stand for this to work, and his stand could play a similar role to Avdol in Magician's Red, I assume. Messina probably does have a stand that could probably go against Jotaro and maybe knock him out of the prison. And this timeline, he could also have to replace Polnareff. He'd also probably have to replace, what was his face? Avdol, him and Joseph would have to fight against Mariah. A lot of the stuff where Avdol was important in and had to help Joseph, it would have just been Messina and Joseph in this timeline. Or Messina and or Messina and Polnareff, or Messina and all that. And realistically, it really wouldn't change much, I guess. But Messina's character could have his own special role with his own stand abilities, I guess. A third case scenario is maybe after Avdol gets killed, or killed, by Whole Horse and J-Guile, they call in Messina as, I guess, a new backup. Since at this point, most of the Crusaders are still pretty young, since we got Jotaro, Polnareff, and Kakyoin. They're all really young, so at this point it would make a lot of sense for Joseph to want to get another kind of older mentor figure here. And plus, knowing how Joseph does kind of need, I guess, someone like that, calling in someone like Messina could work, since at that point Joseph knows him a lot well, and he also helped Joseph with training his Hamon. So I personally think it'd make a lot of sense for Messina to actually help out Joseph and kind of come in when they would have needed it, the Crusaders, to help the younger guys out. Scenario 4 is, I guess, another scenario you can go with, and this is 5, is Messina is introduced during the Nodal fight. And this either means he's like with the Speedwagon Foundation, or like in the place of the Speedwagon Foundation, and he's the one delivering Iggy, or it's him going there alone, and he's replacing Iggy as the 6th member. Now, realistically, it wouldn't be a surprise they would not really trust Iggy. Iggy was only really a wild card and was more of a last resort thing, and that was more or less the Crusaders being desperate, and plus with them being in Egypt where sand was pretty much everywhere, of course he could have been really useful there. I think in this case, Messina would have to need a powerful stand to replace Iggy here, and him being the 6th Crusader could work. That, or he's just an additional member, and it's him and Iggy, I guess, together there. Another scenario is, I guess, the scenario that I just thought of, so this is more like a 5.5, and that Messina goes when Avdol makes his canon return. So Messina is introduced to the Crusaders when Avdol, I guess, returns and saves Polnareff. Maybe Messina works with, and Avdol and Polnareff all three work together instead. And I guess the Judgment arc can be about those three instead. That's, I guess, one scenario you can kind of go with. Another, I guess, alternative scenario is that kind of thing. And then the sixth scenario is Messina. It's kind of similar to the Avdol one. They need someone to get replaced, and instead of it being Avdol, it'd be Kakyoin, since he'd still get that whole eye injury thing. So instead, they just call in Messina, who can, I guess, theoretically in this universe, fulfill Kakyoin's role as the Sixth Crusader for a little while. Obviously, Kakyoin most likely still makes still makes his comeback, and at that point, Messina can just stay for the rest of the part. And not only that, but Messina could theoretically leave after his work is done, but then again, seeing how Joseph was also supposed to leave part 3 originally, not making this up, Araki was originally going to have Joseph leave in the middle of the story because of his old age. I personally think at this point, Messina would face the same fate as Joseph, and it'd be kind of one of those things where Araki just decides to keep him for the sake of the story. Which I'm going to say, for the sake of the story, we keep him around as, I guess, the aged mentor who can kind of fill that role, I guess. Now, I'm only really going to talk about the final fights here. You know, the fight with, like, the castle fight. If you want to know about the final fights in, like, each of the scenarios, I guess, then go ahead. And also, I'm going with the assumption that we're keeping Avdol and Iggy on the crew in this timeline. So they're not being replaced, and we're not replacing anyone else. We're keeping the same Stardust Crusaders. I guess time to flow through the normal adventure. And in my opinion, this could honestly depend now here. On one hand, Messina could be there in the gaming dungeon with Jotaro, Joseph, and Kakyoin. And they can go against younger Darby together, which realistically, Messina isn't going to really do much because he's really old and I really don't see him playing video games. Another scenario is I guess Messina would have to work with Avdol, Iggy, and Polnareff, and those three would have to fight against Vanilla Ice. Now, in this timeline, this could change very differently. Since, Avdol was originally died, it's possible that you could go the route of Messina maybe dying instead. That, or it's still Avdol. Araki originally went for Avdol because he was really overpowered. Yeah, okay, you want to know a fun fact, guys? Apparently, Araki never... Okay, a lot of people talk about, Araki should have done more with Avdol. Well, I'm going to tell you why he never did anything with Avdol. Apparently, Avdol was so strong, Araki couldn't do nothing with him because he was that overpowered. I am not making this up. Avdol got no screen time because he was really, really powerful. Wow, Araki. What a way to shoot yourself in the foot. That's pretty incredible to know Avdol was that powerful. But either way, assuming Avdol, I guess, lives or dies, it's possible that Avdol could still die. Maybe he lives. It's kind of hard to say there. That was kind of the reason why Araki killed off Avdol, realistically. So, but in my opinion, would Messina die in Avdol's spot? It's possible. It could really go either way, to be honest. I'll probably say whoever does live would more or less guarantee an Iggy survival, because Avdol's flames are really powerful, and Hamon is obviously known for killing vampires. I think there's a higher chance for Iggy to live if Messina lives, to be honest, because Hamon is just better against vampires altogether. Avdol's really strong, and he could theoretically speed up the Vanilla Ice fight. Whether or not he could have saved Iggy is up for a debate. Now I guess we gotta talk about the final fight with Dio, and this could theoretically change, I guess, the events of the part. So at this point, whoever we're left with between Avdol and, I guess, Messina, I'm assuming one of them would have had to die against Vanilla Ice. But most likely, Iggy would still be here, so that's honestly a good thing for little Ig. We still have Jotaro, Joseph, Polnareff, and Kakyoin, and we obviously gotta get a split up. Now, Iggy could theoretically... Now, in this timeline, between Messina or Avdol, they could theoretically die in the place of Kakyoin. This is also kind of a question here, and another question is, if Messina doesn't die in the spot of Avdol, and if assuming we're keeping Avdol dead because Araki didn't want to keep him alive because of how busted his stand was, would Messina take the place of Kakyoin? Now, this is another interesting question, and this also really just depends on what kind of stand Messina has in general. Could his stand, I guess, be long enough to, like, I guess, force a time stop on Dio? Does he have the exact power he needs to, I guess, go the distance with Dio? This leads Dio to stop time and just kill Messina with the donut technique. Another scenario is maybe they bring Iggy in this case, like Joseph and Kakyoin do, and they use the sand clone technique. And this could theoretically mean Kakyoin can just hide away and use the sand clone. This gives Kakyoin enough time to, I guess, realize the world's power, and that could basically lead to everything going the same theoretically. This is kind of a hard scenario, and theoretically, when it comes to Messina, I honestly just think he's going to die no matter what. Now, whoever lives and dies at this point is kind of hard to imagine. Now, if I'm going that the route where Messina does die to Vanilla Ice, I think a scenario that would happen is that I think all the Crusaders would have lived, or most of them, with like maybe Kakyoin just dying potentially. That's a maybe. And that's because Polnareff most likely really wouldn't care much about Messina and would not really have much of a legal obligation. Sorry about that. A legal obligation to avenge him, because realistically he wouldn't have that much of an attachment, so he can just not really run off. And this gives the Stardust Crusaders enough time to prepare and actually think of a game plan to go against Dio. This was kind of what screwed them over in the previous timeline, and that Polnareff kind of just ran into battle instead of giving the Crusaders time to think. And if that's the case, they could actually plan up a far better attack. And in theory, Jotaro's plan of the group splitting up and attacking Dio from each side actually probably would have worked. Granted, it could have still failed like in canon, but I actually think there's a good chance it would have worked. And this could end with all the OG Crusaders actually surviving, or maybe most of them. Dio could probably kill off someone like Avdol or Kakyoin or Iggy. Heck, he may actually kill off Joseph, most likely, since, Dio needing Joseph's blood. This also could be a cool ending idea I thought of, is maybe instead Dio just donuts Joseph, and this basically leads to all the old battle tendency cast dying, kind of passing the torch to the new generation. I know that seems very unlikely, but I just thought that would be kind of cool, and something I wanted to bring up as something I would have done if I was writing in this spot. If I was writing JoJo here instead, I would have definitely wrote something like that as kind of a cool passing of the torch to the next generation of, I guess, fighters. But, I guess kind of skipping over that, I assume between Avdol, Iggy, or Kakyoin, someone would probably have to die. If I'm saying who, I'm 100% biased here. I'm keeping Kakyoin alive if I had my say in this. I'm not really going to cover 4 through 6, I guess. If you want to hear my opinion on 4 through 6, I'll say it. But if I had to pick who lives and dies, I'd personally just have Messina die to Vanilla Ice, and to die to Dio, probably Avdol or Iggy. Maybe even Joseph, I guess, since Dio wanted to kill him. But this death probably would have been permanent, since I guess Joseph wouldn't know about donating people. Jotaro and Polnareff would both live, most likely. And I'd keep Kakyoin alive in this case, because I'm completely biased, and the fact that Kakyoin literally got injured, came back and just died, came back alive just to die again, was just freaking stupid. Would have much rathered him survive if that was the case. But realistically, that's how I think this timeline would go. Assuming Polnareff just doesn't run into battle, which I don't think he would, because, why is Polnareff going to get into a friendship with Messina? It feels kind of random, and I really don't think it works. Unless you just went the route of removing Avdol, then I really can't see the franchise. Then I don't see the story really changing. If you replaced Iggy, arguably it could just lead to Messina just dying in Kakyoin's place there, with Avdol still dying, I guess. Or maybe it'd just be Avdol and Polnareff working together instead. And then maybe in that case, either Kakyoin still dies, or just have Avdol take his death place, maybe. Since I do think it fits more in character to have Avdol travel with Joseph in that case, but those are just some ideas. This was a requested video, but unfortunately I lost the comment. I lost whoever requested this video. I'm sorry if I couldn't save it. Say your name in the comments if you requested this video, by the way. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see y'all next time with my next JoJo What If. Or at least next What If in general. Because we don't know if I'm going to do another JoJo What If. We don't know, man. We just don't know. Alright, see you guys.